Well, it's often said that when your backs are against the wall, it shows a person's real character. And it's the same for teams as well in sport and otherwise in life. And if at all we needed an example in cricket, in modern day cricket, to show us just that, India, well, did take on that mantle and showed us what exactly does resilience of a united team look like. India lost 3 wickets on day 5 of the third test in Sydney, a test for the ages, a test for all of us to remember for a long, long time, for not just one reason, which was India seeing out what looked like a probable defeat, but also giving us lessons for us to take home and apply perhaps in everyday life. Here are the top learnings from what is going to go down as one of the greatest test matches of all time. Lesson number 1, surprise your enemy. Rishabh Pant's promotion to the top of the order, well, at least to number 5 from his customary number 6 position, came as a shock for Australia. They did not really expect it at that time. They expected Hanuma Vihari to walk out and continue the process of blocking deliveries along with Cheteshwar Pujara. However, in walked Rishabh Pant, someone who was injured in the first innings, but this time walked out with a different intent altogether. He did not, however, show his intent straight up. About 9 runs from the first 35 deliveries meant everybody thought, hang on a minute, is India going to just look at drawing the test? Is Rishabh Pant going to go against his character and do what the team needs at that point of time? But one thing that we know about this team is that they never back down. Rishabh Pant took his time, saw out the seam bowlers, and when Nathan Lyon arrived at the crease, decided to take on one of the best bowlers in the world and of course one of the best bowlers of Australia, and then began to up the ante, and that shell-shocked Australia. In all honesty, Australia were looking to dominate India in every single moment of day 5 of the test, but when Rishabh Pant began that counter-attack, Australia were taken aback. And in that very moment, Australia began doubting if they can really pull this off. And sowing the seed of doubt in the enemy is the number 1 step for the protagonist of the movie to make the inroads into the battle. That was learning number 1, sow the seeds of doubt in the enemy by surprising them. Number 2 is application. Application to the demands of the circumstances around us. Cheteshwar Pujara walked out, of course, along with Ajinkya Rahane at the beginning of the day, and it was clear that Cheteshwar Pujara will do what he does best, which is to bat for long periods of time. Remember, Pujara's record in the 4th innings isn't the best. He hasn't really contributed a lot in the second innings for his team, but this time Pujara walked out with the intent to adapt to conditions that needed his expertise. And he did just that by scoring his 3rd slowest 50 of his career. Now, of course, his slowest 50 came in the first innings, and everybody commented on the intent or the show of intent on Cheteshwar Pujara's batting. However, in this scenario, it was more than necessary for Pujara to do what he does best, and he did exactly that. Pujara, with his performance, showed us that adapting to conditions around us and playing to our strengths is absolutely necessary, and it panned out really, really well for Pujara and for India as he batted along, of course, with a completely contrasting style of Rishabh Pant. However, Pujara held fort and he ensured that India batted through that tricky phase from lunch to tea and looked resilient. And the absolute holy grail to cricket and to life at number 1, batting in partnerships, playing in partnerships, living and building in partnerships. And that was displayed by Ravi Ashwin and Hanuma Vihari. Talking in Tamil to ensure that their messages are not decoded by the Australians in the middle of the surface, and of course sharing responsibilities at the surface, Hanuma Vihari and Ravichandran Ashwin saw out the entirety of the last session on day 5 when the pressure was being put on by Australia. There was banter, there was beyond banter, there were a number of tactics used to derail these two folks, but these two gentlemen held on, and held on how? Hanuma Vihari, of course, did his hamstring. He couldn't run, he couldn't walk after a point. Ravichandran Ashwin, as revealed by his wife later on Twitter, that he was also facing a number of issues with his back. And these two gentlemen, with all of their adversities, came together to share responsibility. Ravi Ashwin took on Nathan Lyon, while Hanuma Vihari took on the seamers and saw them out. And that's how you share responsibility and take on adversity in trying times. A big, big life lesson for all of us to take home from the test. The third test in Sydney, and especially day 5 of the third test in Sydney, had everything. It showed us resilience, it showed us passion, it showed us togetherness, it showed us the importance of working for one cause. And Team India championed through all of it to give us absolutely incredible life lessons that we will all take with us, and hopefully apply in our lives as well. At least it gave us a test to remember for the ages, a test that we can now pass on to multiple generations in the time to come, and tell the tale of Ajinkya Rahane, Cheteshwar Pujara, Hanuma Vihari, Ravindra Jadeja, Rishabh Pant, and the likes, and how these brave men stood up against everything that came under their way, came in front of them. There was, of course, the unfortunate incident of abuse, of racism, and of course, there were a number of tactics used by Australia to derail them. But this team, amidst all of their injuries, amidst all of their problems, stood strong, stood tall, and kept their hopes alive in the series. Now headed to the Gabba, and we are sure that despite all of these injuries, Australia will know that they will be against a tough Indian side as they go hammer and downs towards the end of the series.